Hello and welcome to another lecture with Professor Slominski. In this lecture, we're going to go through the process of writing a program. Today, you'll learn the main steps to programming, and they are the following. You're going to clearly define what the program is to do. Visualize the program running on the computer. Use design tools such as a hierarchical chart, a flow chart, or pseudocode to create a model of the program. Check the model for logical errors. Type the code, save it, and compile it. Correct errors found during compilation. Repeat steps 5 and 6 as many times as necessary. Run the program to test for the data. Correct any errors found while running the program. Repeat steps 5 through 8. And validate the results of the program. So let's look at a problem statement. Write a program where a payroll clerk can input the first name of the employee, the last name of the employee, the hours worked, and the pay rate. Print out the employee's name in the message, "You will be paid X dollars for this week." Your program will calculate the pay. For this problem, don't worry about taxes. Just don't tell Uncle Sam. Okay, so this is going to be the problem that we're going to examine. So step 1, clearly define what the program needs to do. So our program needs to do the following. It needs to get the first and last name for the user. It needs to get the hours worked for the user, get the pay rate for the user, do some math to figure out the total pay, which is hours worked times pay rate, and print out the message with the user's name and pay. So visualize the program running is the next step. So here's what the program is going to look like when it's running. Please enter employee's first name, Marcy. Please enter the employee's last name, McNeary. So the user is going to enter in Marcy and McNeary. The program is going to automatically output, please enter in the pay rate. And we're going to put in 22.5. Please enter the hours worked, 41. And we want an output that looks like this. Marcy McNeary worked for 22.50 hours, 22.50 per hour for 41 hours and earned $922.50 for the week. So for this particular problem, I decided to represent the visual diagram of the flowchart. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to input the first name, then we're going to input the last name, input hours worked, input the pay rate, calculate pay rate times hours worked, and then output the result. So these are the steps that we're going to use to write our program. Let's check the model for logical errors. We can discuss it, but one error may be not calculating tax. Since I stated at the start we're exempt from tax, this isn't really an error. So here's what the program looks like. Let's take a look. So part 1, define the variables. So what we do is we make 2 string variables, one for first name, one for last name, and then we make 3 double variables. Hours worked, hourly pay, and total pay. Okay? So part 1 is define all the variables that we need. We could initialize them to values, but we didn't here. We don't need to. Part 2, get the input from the user. So cout, please enter the employee's first name and line. So cin is getting the data. So what the cin line does is capturing the data. So cout, again, that's the prompt, and cin is going to capture in what they typed there for their last name. Cout, please enter the employee's hourly pay. Cin, hourly pay. So when they type in the third thing, this third number, that's going to get stored in our hourly pay. You could do this all in the same line. I decided to do it on separate lines. The last one, enter the weekly hours. So please enter the weekly hours, 42, and that's going to get captured and stored in the RAM location, which is symbolically named hours worked. Okay? Total pay. So now part 3 is we do the processing. So total pay equals hourly pay times hours worked. Part 4, output. We're going to do those 2 lines there on line 29 and 31. What they do is they create a fixed floating point format, and they define the fixed format to do decimal places. So if you're dealing with money and you want to output the money to have 2 decimal places after it, you could just simply use this technique. It's very simple to do, and it will get you 2 decimal points, 2 decimal places, 2 numbers after the decimal place, okay? So if you'll notice on lines 34 through 37, I used one of our style rules. I used actually a few of our style rules. The first style rule I used was making sure we line up the shift operators, the less than signs. And the next one I used is I made sure that I didn't do any processing in there. So we're going to get first name. And the reason why I did this, I made this little quote, is if you look here, it says Jeff space Slominski. So there's a little space. So I made a space here. We have to do that. And it says worked for, and I put a space before and after. So worked for has spaces. And I put in $42, worked for 42 hours at an hourly rate of $18.62, which resulted in a total pay of, and here I just put a little dollar sign. It's nothing fancy. I didn't output it to be currency. I just put a dollar sign here. Total pay for the week. So if you notice, we took our original program where we wanted to input our first name, our last name, our hourly pay and our hours worked, and we wanted to output the user's first and last name, their number of hours they worked, their hourly pay, and what the total pay they made was. We created a flow chart, which was a good detail of how our program was supposed to flow. And then finally, we implemented our flow chart using this program. And we validated the result by running it and making sure that our output is what is intended. So here are the key points to remember. Clearly define the problem. Understand what we have to do. Make a diagram of your problem, flowchart diagram, pseudocode, etc. Trace the program by hand if needed, if need be, when dealing with loops and logic, which this program didn't have. Run the program with the data sets and verify the results, which we did, and then review the results. And if you have any logical errors, start back at step 1. Make sure you defined it properly, look at your flowchart, and look for the errors. So hopefully this gives you a really good idea of how a program is created, how you analyze the problem, form a solution, and implement the solution. Thank you for watching.